Hey, I'm golf broadcaster Matt Adams. The updated and expanded second edition of my book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments, is now available. Readers can expect to march with Arnie's Army at the 1960 U.S. Open, relive Jack Nicklaus's remarkable 1986 Masters win, and be amazed by the Tiger Slam. The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments. Pick it up where fine books are sold, including BarnesandNoble.com and Amazon.com.
This day in sports history. And hello there, and welcome back to another edition of This Day in Sports History. It's May 20th, and on this day in 2002, a question started circulating. Was Kobe Bryant intentionally poisoned? So a little background first before we jump into the details. This is the 2002 NBA playoffs, and Kobe's Los Angeles Lakers are squaring off with the Sacramento Kings in the Western Conference Finals. The Lakers took Game 1 106-99 on the road at Avco Arena on the 18th. Game 2 was set for the night of the 20th. The Lakers were staying at the Sacramento Hyatt, and the night before Game 2, Kobe was hungry, and he called room service and ordered a cheeseburger and a slice of cheesecake. Around 1 a.m., he woke up with, well, let's just say gastrointestinal distress. He was sick and in pain, curled up on his bed with stomach cramps between trips to the bathroom. He finally called the trainer Gary Vitti at 3 a.m. Vitti said that without a doubt, he had food poisoning. All signs pointed to it. Kobe was drained of energy, but he was given intravenous fluids throughout the day. But unlike MJ's heroic flu game against Utah in the 97 finals when he scored 38, Kobe's performance was a little more in line with somebody whose energy is depleted, finishing with 22 points on 43% shooting. He turned the ball over 4 times as well. The fact he was able to play at all is saying something, considering the state that he had been in hours before. Now, after the game, rumors started to fly, questions were asked, conspiracy theories feasting on the void with tiny tidbits of information leaking out. Was Kobe intentionally poisoned? Well, a hotel spokesperson confirmed that a cheeseburger and a slice of cheesecake had been delivered to Bryant's room the evening prior, but found it hard to believe it was the kitchen's fault. Kobe's incident was the only one reported that night. They had served 1,700 meals that evening, including 300 burgers, and nobody else got sick. Usually, if it's spoiled food, it will affect a number of people, not just one. So then the rumor was it could be the black hand of the New Jersey Mafia that had intentionally poisoned Kobe's beef. The reasoning? The mob apparently had big money riding on the New Jersey Nets winning the NBA championship that season, and they were in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Boston Celtics at the time. That theory seems a bit weak, considering the timing. I mean, why wouldn't they be sending cheeseburgers to Boston's Paul Pierce first to make sure that their Nets got to the finals to begin with? Ooh, or did they? Sorry, they didn't. I just did that to add some suspense and intrigue. Who knows why Kobe was the only person affected? Going back to that Jordan flu game in 97, where he apparently was the only one who ate the pizza the night before. This is kind of an outlier. Anyways, the Lakers went on to win the series with Sacramento in 7 games, and then they swept the Nets to win the NBA title that season. Of course, before the Nets moved to New Jersey and eventually Brooklyn, they were the New York Nets in the ABA. Well, on this night in 1972, it was Game 6 of the ABA Finals between the Nets and the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers came into the game with a 3-2 series lead and a chance to close it out. Indiana erased a 12-point deficit to score the comeback win 108-105 and take their second ABA championship. Roger Brown had 32 in the win, and the Pacers became the first ABA team to win a second title. This was also the first time that 2 future NBA teams would meet in the finals. The only other time that it happened was in 1976 when the Nets beat the Denver Nuggets. Going from one Rebel League to another, also on this day in 1979, it was another Game 6 of the World Hockey Association Finals. Winnipeg beat Wayne Gretzky and the Edmonton Oilers 7-3 to win the last Avco Cup. The following year, the NHL would absorb several of the WHA teams, including Edmonton and Winnipeg. The 18-year-old Gretzky had 43 goals and 61 assists as a rookie, but he came up a little short in his first shot at a cup. Edmonton was a charter member of the WHA and became the only charter member that made it all the way to the end of the league that never won the Avco trophy. On this day in 2000, tragedy struck the Minnesota Timberwolves when guard Malik Sealey was killed in an automobile crash. Sealey had spent that evening at Kevin Garnett's 24th birthday party at a Minneapolis restaurant. After the party broke up around 1 a.m., he was returning home when a pickup truck crossed the center line and plowed into Sealey's SUV. It was later determined the driver of the pickup was drunk with a blood alcohol level of 0.19, nearly double the legal limit at that time in Minnesota. Sealey was 30 years old. He was the second NBA player to die in a car accident that year. Charlotte Hornet Bobby Phills died after he lost control racing a teammate after practice back in January of 2000. With the hopes of a Triple Crown winner dashed this past weekend at Pimlico, let's go back to this day in 1972 when longshot BBB dashed the Triple Crown hopes of Riva Ridge. BBB broke from the gate and took the early lead and would never relinquish it, winning by 1 1/4 lengths. BBB started the race with 19-1 odds. Riva Ridge had been the heavy betting favorite at 1-5 odds to win on this day, and was also a favorite to become the first horse in 24 years to win the Triple Crown. The horse racing world would only have to wait one more year for that to finally come to fruition. And you know what sport I have never talked about here on this dish? Bull riding. Well, let's change that. On this day in 1988, the legendary bull Red Rock was finally ridden for a full 8 seconds in competition. Bull riding icon Lane Frost was the first and only cowboy to accomplish this feat. Prior to Frost's successful ride, Red Rock had successfully shucked 309 riders. Frost's ride was part of the Challenge of the Champions series in Redding, California, and during that series, Frost rode Red Rock 7 times and successfully rode the required 8 seconds 4 of those 7. After the event, Red Rock was retired and he lived until he was 18. And in 1922 on this day, Kenessaw Mountain Landis reinstated Babe Ruth and 2 other players after suspending them following the 1921 season. Now back then, there obviously was not television, and radio coverage of baseball was in its infancy. In fact, the first radio broadcast of a baseball game was in Pittsburgh in August of 1921. And so, unless you lived close enough to a ballpark, you couldn't watch your favorite players. You could read about them in the paper, but that was the only option. Well, after the season ended, players would do barnstorming tours around different parts of the country that didn't have professional teams. Now, there was a financial incentive, sure, but really they were spreading the gospel of baseball, and kids could see their heroes in the flesh. Now, Kenessaw Mountain Landis was the new commissioner of baseball, and it had been decreed that players participating in the World Series were not permitted to go barnstorming. At least, not without asking King Landis for permission first. Ruth had ignored that rule and did not ask Landis's permission. At that point, it became a power struggle between the commissioner and the country's best-known athlete. Landis slapped Babe and the 2 others with a month-long ban that ended on this day. After the suspension ended, Babe went into a hitting slump that lasted until the summer. And time now for today's Non-Sports Did You Know? Going back to the age of pirates, the Dutch used a small ship to hunt pirate ships. These small ships were called yacht ships, and that is spelled Jaghtsschip. And from that, we get the term for the luxurious boats that we now call yachts. That's all for today. I'll have more tomorrow on This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website, seriously, all you got to do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you got to do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.